What's up, everyone? My name is Colin Dreher.
And I'm Antonio Fabrera.
It is June 26th, around 8:40 p.m., and this is what we are calling Episode 0. Welcome to Byte Club, a pop culture and technology podcast where we talk about all of the hot topics that people love today and the technology that are specifically intertwined with them. If you're like us and you love technology, you're probably tired of listening to all the boring podcasts in the technology category that look at technology so one-dimensionally.
If you love pop culture, such as movies, TV, art, music, sports, video games, you're probably just like us, average Joes. So if this is something that interests you, please feel free to subscribe to our podcast. We're going to have episodes on a regular basis, and we're going to be on all your different podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and many more.
All right, let's just get into it. So, as I mentioned, this is our quote-unquote Episode 0. We're sort of using this as a recording session to give you guys an introduction on who we are and what we're all about.
Yeah, and just like Colin said, our goal today is basically just to give you guys a gist of not only what we do and what this podcast is, but basically to give you an understanding as to who we are personally and how we got started and how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're just a couple of 23-year-olds who are fresh out of college. We both graduated in April of 2019 from the University of Pittsburgh, but we've had an entrepreneurial spirit since we met each other freshman year.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess this is probably a good time to just kind of talk about how we met, how things got started. So I guess to kind of start this story, Colin and I met our freshman year at Pitt, as he had mentioned, and we lived on the same floor. We didn't room together, but we lived on the same floor. We became friends, and we were both computer science majors. We hit it off. We had the same classes together. We lived on the same floor. I guess how it really started is, I made that. You kind of like came to me and said, "Hey man, I made this dumb little iOS game," and Colin had mentioned that. Hey, it's pretty cool. We should, build something together. We didn't do anything freshman year together in terms of building a product or a software, but, it at least put the thought in my mind, like, hey, this kid, it's not only my friend, but he is also interested in, building his own stuff and has an entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, I mean, so freshman year, what would that have been? That was that bouncy ball game that you made in high school.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I made it like my senior year of high school.
Yeah. Bouncy Ball Mayhem. Still on the App Store.
little shameless plug there.
Yeah, basically, the two of us, met freshman year. Just a dumb coincidence. We didn't know each other. We were stuck on the same floor, in the residency hall, at Pitt, up in the towers. So, it was just mutual interest. We were both going for computer science degrees, both techie guys, but it had some other common interests like sports and stuff like that. And I just thought it would be really cool to, sort of, do something like, I was a huge math guy in high school. Like I got a perfect score on the SAT
That's wild.
In math, right? And then just like shit the bed in reading. I was terrible.
I did not get a perfect score on the SAT.
Calculus, I was always ahead of the curve a little bit in math. And then junior year, I took a Visual Basic class. I was like, this is pretty cool. Senior year, I took AP Computer Science. And ever since then, it was focusing just on program. So, I got to school and was sort of like, what am I going to do for a career? I want to be a developer, but like, I kind of just like never wanted to work for anybody else, even at that early age. So like, when you and I met and we were kind of just like joking, we're like, oh yeah, let's do something together. And then, sort of turned into what we're doing now with our company.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know if we mentioned it in this episode or not, but Colin and I co-founded and run a company called Atsap LLC. Fun fact: Atsap is actually just pasta spelled backwards.
Yeah,
little ode to my Italian heritage there. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird how we met. So we met freshman year. We kind of hit it off. We both understood that we had this entrepreneurial spirit. But if we flash forward like a year, later, a year and a half later.
Yeah.
Was it the end of our sophomore year? I think.
Yeah, I think it was approaching 2019
Right. Right.
at some point,
Yeah.
or 2018.
Maybe 2018. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's been, it feels so long ago.
Yeah.
Even though but like we flash forward to this point where, so I had made this app, Bouncy Ball Mayhem, in high school, my senior year. Put it on the App Store. It was just a dumb game. It didn't get many downloads. Colin thought it was cool.
Yeah, it's just the fact that you made something yourself. Because I hadn't done that at that point. And I was always on my phone. On playing apps and stuff like that. So it was kind of cool that you just had made something. That was pretty cool because I had never done that, which is what caught my eye. I was like, oh, this is pretty sick that you actually made something in high school. Because
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do that, and you were all self-taught, right?
Yeah. I just I actually, the end of my junior year of high school, like similar to you, I took my junior year of high school. I took a Java class, and it was really interesting. It was really cool. It's really what got me interested in computer science. Unlike Colin, I was not and am not a math wizard. I'm good at math, but not like I didn't even take calculus in high school. I took Calc 1 for the first time in college. But after my junior year, I took this Java class in high school, and it really spiked my interest, and I was like, oh, this is cool. But like it was only building desktop apps, so to me, like I was like, oh, what do I use every day? My PlayStation or my cell phone. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to make a PlayStation game. Let me use my iPhone to make an iPhone game or something like that. And so I went to Barnes & Nobles and actually bought an Objective-C book, and I actually read that cover to cover. The funny thing about it is when I finished that book and went to go write that Bouncy Ball Mayhem game, Apple switched their language from Objective-C to Swift. So I basically read a book that was completely useless to me. I mean, it benefited me in that like I learned something, and Objective-C is still sort of relevant today. But I remember being so pissed off about that, thinking like, you got to be kidding me! The one time I actually read a book cover to cover, it rendered itself useless to me.
That sucks. That blows.
But yeah, so we flash forward to our sophomore year of college, or the end of the sophomore year of college, going into like maybe 2018, and I had made this other game called Squeeze, another shameless plug. That it's another dumb little mobile game for iPhone and Android, and Colin reached out to me again and says, hey man, like this is really cool, we should definitely seriously make something together. And I remember him telling me like, hey, if you ever have another app idea, like before you start, give me a call. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And actually that summer, going into our junior year of college, I was sitting in my backyard with my dad, and there were these fireworks going off. I remember him saying to me like, oh, like where are those going off from? And I was like, I have absolutely no idea. And I remember thinking to myself, there should be an app where, it should be telling you what's going on in your area. Like how can we live, 10 feet from these fireworks are going off, but have no idea there's like a festival going on down the street from us. There should be an app that tells us this. And so I came up with this idea for an app called PIMA, which is an acronym that stands for People, Places, Parties in My Area. And this was a bigger project, so I was like, I need other developers involved. So I immediately gave Colin a call, and we developed this app together. This also is how our third business partner, Jim, who is actually my uncle, gets involved into our little company here. He was kind of the business end of things that kind of told me I should start a company to be the back behind this application, because it involves user downloads and users making accounts and stuff like that. So you should probably make a company behind that. So that's what we did. Long story short, the app actually did sort of well. We got a couple of thousand downloads the first 3 months after we launched. But there was this whole issue, if people remember, with this Facebook had this like scandal with the 2016 campaign, or not 2016 campaign, or
yeah, essentially they shut down the API that we needed. So it was this Facebook events API where you could have scraped all of this data that Facebook had gathered, and it would have been exactly what we needed for PIMA. in order to populate data on the application so that it wasn't bare when users were going to use it. Um, and then there was a scandal in which users' data was essentially breached, and
Right.
they shut it down, and that was pretty much that.
Yeah. I mean, that basically ended the PIMA application for us, just because we were so heavily relied on Facebook to aggregate the data that we were using to display to our users, that when that went away, we had no way of gathering the data, and we just lost user interest, and basically the app died. But it was a good learning experience. I think I learned early on that one of the mistakes that we made was that we didn't have a backup plan. I was just completely sold on the fact that Facebook's gigantic. There's no way we can, there's no way we can lose. Facebook's never gonna go out of business, and they didn't go out of business, but they shut down that API, and I was completely blindsided by that. But that kind of brings us into the pivot point where we kind of Atsap was always the company name, but we kind of pivoted from being Atsap being a software company that was developing this PIMA application into a software consulting company that provides custom software for clients, small businesses alike, and startup companies. So that's kind of how we got to where we were today. So we didn't originally start as a consulting company. We started as a software company building proprietary software, and we still do that today.
Yep.
But I would say the large portion of our business is definitely the consulting side of things.
Yeah, I actually just looked this up. So to bounce back to the scandal we were talking about, the Facebook Cambridge Analytica data scandal, which happened in early 2018, when millions of Facebook users had their personal data, essentially taken without consent. So Facebook allowed this company to use their API or to use their users' data, and essentially, a huge scandal broke out from that.
Right. And that's the one too. Like, I was fascinated by that, because wasn't that the thing that wasn't there some theory going around that because of they used the Graph API, or I think it's called Graph API, but the theory is that all you needed to have was you needed to be friends with 3 people on Facebook, and you can actually get data from every single user on Facebook or something like that. It was something weird.
That's insane. I didn't know about that, but that's crazy. But I didn't want to go too far off tangent of what you were saying in terms of our company. It was sad at the time that we had to pivot, but now, being almost 3 years removed from it, being, June 2020 now, you started the company in June of 2017. I sort of came on board, I think it was 2019. It was when I officially came on board, as far as the Atsap consulting company. When I came on board, and became a board member, so now I'm the CTO and co-founder of the company, and you're the CEO and the co-founder, and then like we said, our third business partner, Jim, who we'll have on the podcast at some point, I'm sure. Once he gets to listen to the podcast, he'll be complaining as to why he wasn't on it.
Absolutely.
So but he's our the other co-founder and the CBA for the company. So we can get into our roles, maybe in a little bit. But essentially, that was really the gist of how the company kind of pivoted and became a software, consulting firm, essentially. And we've been scaling that and building that over the last couple years. We work full time, 40 hours a week at full time positions, and then we work tirelessly after work, to try and just continue, scaling up our business and, working with our clients who, we value so much and the work that we do. And, that's sort of a little gist about the company,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we would both agree that our end goal is to strive to make Atsap our full-time jobs. Obviously we're just not there yet. But that is definitely our end goal. And I think the crazy thing about this whole thing is that, you know, we we didn't. This wasn't our original plan. We kind of stumbled into this.
Yes.
But like the failure of the PIMA application, while that, like, personally hurts, just kind of sucks.
Yeah, it sucked. It was.
Yeah.
I remember we were both just so mad.
Yeah,
like,
I was
because
pretty
it
pissed.
was like you build this thing from nothing, and you get a couple thousand downloads, in the first few months, and you're like, all right, well, this is really cool. We have all these future ideas. We're still doing development. We're trying to, broaden our reach by adding functionality to the application. We're going to populate data to the application, and then all of a sudden it just collapses.
Right.
It just fell out from underneath us, and we just had no other choice but to abandon it.
Yeah. So, like, I guess the other part of that story is that we had got to a point where, we had a couple thousand downloads, things were going well, and we were looking to bring other people involved to help market, to help, promote this application. And right when we kind of got all this going together, got some people and more people involved, and that's when that whole scandal kind of hit, and that's when it all kind of just fell apart. We couldn't recover from that. But like I said, I think it was a great lesson learned. I think this is experience that we bring to our clients now going forward, where, I'm very upfront with our clients, and I tell them this story, not as a way to say, like, hey, we don't know what the heck we're doing, but as a way to tell them that, like, we've been in your shoes, especially the startup companies where, we've started our own business, and we understand that, like, it is a crazy ride, and we've had successes, but we've also had failures, and I think it's important to learn from your mistakes and your failures, and I think that's, like, a really good experience that we have that we can bring to the table for our clients.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, like, we're both 23, so I'm sure any people listening are like, what do you guys know, you're only 23 years old,
Right.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, we're still kind of novice and naive in the business still, but we're learning. We've gained so much valuable experience over the last couple of years, especially myself, kind of settling into the CTO role, and managing all of the development projects now is been a really cool experience. I work with our clients and our developers every single day, especially with this COVID stuff that is going on right now. It's like,
Right.
Working from home all the time is, it's been nice to allow me to be able to keep up with that sort of stuff, outside of the original responsibilities that obviously I have to still maintain with my full-time position. We're both kind of in that tricky spot where we both have these full-time jobs, which you can't abandon, or you can't, ignore work for, because obviously when you sign up to take a full-time job, we disclosed that we had our own side hustle, our own startup software consulting company on the side, and those companies were gracious enough to allow us to,
Right.
you know what I mean, like, and they were understanding, as long as, I mean, they don't really care as long as you are doing your work. So I mean, it's really tough having a balance between the two.
Definitely, yeah. Trying to keep that balance between the work life and personal life is been difficult. I've actually taken up, well, both of us, I mean, you more than I, but golf. I've been golfing a lot recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, especially in the COVID times, it's been a nice way to get out of the house.
Oh yeah.
You're not getting so stir crazy, going out on walks and playing golf and stuff like that. It's been really nice. The company is sort of where it's at now, to the point where we decided to start a podcast. Why the hell not?
Yeah, like, what do we have to lose, man? Yeah, but I guess that's a good kind of lead in as to, why we started this podcast. We started this podcast because I think that, like, we, like Colin had mentioned, we're 23, we're young, but we have a lot of energy to bring to the table. I think that's what kind of sets us aside from other consulting firms that work with the smaller businesses. Is, we're really energetic in solving problems for our clients, especially the small business clients.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's really important to us, and speaks really highly of how we interact with those small businesses, and you know, we have a voice that I think is different than our other competitors, and that's why I think we started this podcast to kind of get that voice out there to explain who we are, what we know, and like Colin said, you're probably thinking these two 23-year-olds, they've been working for 2 years. What the hell do they know? And I know this seems like some sort of shameless plug for our business right now. But truly, what this podcast is it's like we said in the beginning, it's Byte Club is a pop culture podcast focused on talking about pop culture, modern events, and technology, and how it intertwines. I think when Colin and I first sat down and talked about this idea for this podcast, we really, kind of thought about how technology is everywhere. You don't realize it. I remember, if you go to a hockey game, I'm sitting there watching a hockey game in the arena, and you can see the camera following the puck around as the camera moves around. Like, there's code behind that. There's technology behind that. And people don't think about that, but there's literally technology in your everyday lives. Like, your mobile phone. That's the easiest thing you think of, but you use that every single day, and it's become a part of people's lives. And I think it's really important that we talk about how that technology works, but how it affects pop culture and our society, and how everything like that, all those things, technology and pop culture kind of work together.
Yeah, and I mean, we're just a couple of guys who we love technology. We know the market, and we know technology. And it's really a fun thing to talk about, and we have a lot to talk about. I know you can talk a lot.
Oh, I could BS for days.
Yeah, like we call ourselves like creative and cool nerds, but it's we both grew up in a time, where, if you liked technology and playing video games and comic books and that type of stuff, you were like a nerdy kid. But that's just not really the case anymore. Like you had mentioned, technology is everywhere. It's in sports, it's in music, it's in movies, cinema, art, it's really everywhere. You can't avoid it. And it's really kind of improving all aspects of life in a lot of ways, without you even knowing. Like you said, like, video game consoles, laptops, cell phones, that's all the easy stuff. But like, like you said, you think about sports like baseball and football and basketball are all going towards analytics. There's so much technology behind analytics. It's just like, it's everywhere. Like, it's really everywhere. There's so much content that can be talked about. And we want to do it without looking at, oh, what does this chunk of code mean? What is this? Because we might have an episode or so of talking about programming and code specifically, but there's a lot of people who don't want to listen to that. And then the alternate side of things is, we could talk about, just have an episode about sports or like fantasy football or something.
Right.
And just talk about that, and maybe not talk a whole lot about like the specific technology involved with it. And there's a lot of people who want to listen to that. And then there's a group of people who want to listen to both, who are kind of fall under the umbrella that we're under, in which, we love technology, and then we love, a lot of stuff that regular people like. And that's sort of the whole point of the Byte Club podcast, is just, we want to talk about something that we feel is missing currently in the podcasting world. And we just want to get our ideas out there, and, our voices out there.
Yeah, for sure. And just like, one other thing too is that I think like the computer science, computer programming as a whole gets this, this negative connotation of it. You gotta be a nerd. You're shut in. You don't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're like, you don't get any sun. You don't go outside.
I mean, that is true. Like, it's definitely true about a lot of people.
I can't deny that to an extent. I mean, I hate the beach. But there's some like really cool, interesting topics, involved in computer science that correlate to everyday life, and I think like, if people become aware of that thing, that those things, and that the different ways, computer science is intertwined in their everyday lives, I think people will benefit from learning and understanding those things.
Yeah, I mean, there's like I said, there's just so much to talk about, and there's just so much that we feel that we have to, give to our listeners, and we have a big list of future ideas that we're really excited to turn into episodes and talk about and have you guys listen. And hopefully we're gonna have some guests on too, some guest interviewers. Hopefully people who are relevant in whatever industry that we're discussing on a given episode. We're gonna have on some friends. We're gonna have on some colleagues, and hopefully some people that are actually somewhat relevant in pop culture, and hopefully we can just continue building that up.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's gonna be a really cool podcast we have here.
But yeah, so hopefully you guys liked what we had to say. If this was sort of a boring episode for you, we understand that it was episode 0 for a reason. We're gonna come at the next episode with a little bit more of a structure, a specific topic. We might have somebody on as a guest speaker. We're gonna be going right into the first episode of what the Byte Club podcast is all about. So if you think you're interested in this podcast, please be sure to like and subscribe and share our podcast with your friends, with your family, anybody you know who you think might be interested, who has a special love for technology or pop culture or both.
Absolutely. Peace out.
All right. See you guys.